Been challenging everybody for the last few weeks to take up a Lent challenge. Now, Lent is just the 40 days before Easter. It's a time that the church traditionally dedicates itself to spiritual formation. So you see things like a fast, which is pretty synonymous with Lent, devotional readings and stuff like that. It's really a focused time to try to grow deeper in our faith. And I've been challenging people for three things. First is, like I said, Lent and fasting is synonymous with each other. Pick up a fast. If you don't have a fast that you're just been pressing on you, I always challenge everybody, maybe start off, or if you don't have a habit of fasting, start off with fasting breakfast and lunch on Fridays. That's a good entry-level fast. It's just a good one. So that's the first thing, fast for the next 40 days. The second thing is dedicate yourself to a devotional reading of a gospel. Now, I've been recommending the Gospel of John simply because that's where I'm preaching out of for the next 40 days. If your pastor uses the lectionary, or if you don't have a church and you'd like to join us, that's where we're going to be. We're in the book of John. So supplementing that Sunday morning time, hearing of the word, with during the week reading of the gospel is just going to help it become more alive for you. It's going to help you be able to engage more in that. So the book of John is a good one. Any of the gospels, though, is a great read. And then the third part is commit yourself to corporate worship. Back to, I'm preaching out of John, so I'm encouraging you to read John. Worshiping with the body of Christ is incredibly important, and during this season, it's a good time to recommit to being present with the body of Christ. So, in that vein, I've decided to use my Lent midweek devotionals to kind of preview our sermon to hopefully encourage you to come and also kind of know what's going to happen when you get here on Sundays. So, we're going to dive straight in. I have been working on a series of Who is Jesus? And we're actually leading up to Easter. We started off the series talking about Jesus as a historical, like was he human? Was he divine? Was he both? Spoiler alert, he is both. And then we moved into what is the things that Jesus said, and we really focused on the Sermon on the Mount. We just wrapped that up on Sunday. Now we're transitioning to the third part of the series, what are the things that Jesus did? And like I said earlier, we're going to be focusing on the Gospel of John, and today's text is John 3, 1 through 17. But for this midweek devotional, we're just going to focus on verses 1 and 2. So chapter 3, verses 1 and 2. And this is what they say. Now there was a Pharisee, a man named Nicodemus, who was a member of the Jewish ruling council. He came to Jesus at night and said, Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher who has come from God, for no one could perform the signs you are doing if God were not with him. So a couple of questions just out of those first two verses is, who in the world are the Pharisees? You know, we talk about them all the time. They appear in the gospel a lot. Who are these guys? Well, plain and simple, they're a political faction in the New Testament. Now, they come from a time where a guy named, actually it's his nickname, but his nickname was Judah the Hammer, Judas Maccabeus. He actually overthrew the Syrians and cleansed the temple. And it was this great thing that he did. But what ended up happening is there was a lot of political pressure around him because the people didn't feel like he was following the law and making Israel back into a holy nation like they were called to be. So the Pharisees came around. Now, the Pharisees are kind of, like I said, we kind of picture them as the bad guys of the New Testament. But in all reality, the Pharisees were trying to call the people of Israel back to God by adherence to the law, rituals, and things like that. So the Pharisees were actually responsible for preserving a lot of the faith. So not necessarily a terrible group of people. But the next part we're going to talk about is this light and dark metaphor that John is going to play with for his whole gospel. In chapter 1, he says that Jesus is the light. And then Nicodemus, a Pharisee, who would have been a very respected member of society, comes to Jesus in the darkness. John is trying to cue you up and help you realize, while the Pharisees are not necessarily terrible people, they have missed something. They're in the dark, and Jesus is there to shine the light on them. So, looking forward to seeing you on Sunday. Grace and peace.